I started.
Yeah.
And you can start when you want.
Okay. So do I need to press anything? Or?
No,
it's
not necessarily.
Just,
I
it's
started.
just monitoring. Okay.
Yes,
Right.
this is SD card-based
Okay.
camera.
Great.
Other cameras are cassette-based.
Okay. Yeah, let me use that. So. You're going to be so bored.
You are ready, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just need to solve the light problem. Or this one is fine.
Yeah. We'll work like this.
But you don't have enough light for you. It's okay, I see it.
Can we put the top lights on? Oh, okay.
It's still yellow, no?
Well, it's alright for me.
Oh, for you it's okay?
Yeah, it's perfect.
Alright. I think, when it will be a little bit hotter, it will be not yellow, but it's more to the white tone.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But if it's not working, I try to solve with the carton paper the light.
I told you you're barred. Oh, it's packed. Yeah.
We them support. We've got a post road coming in.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, pleasure. No heckling. No. No. Did you watch Leicester's yesterday?
No. I go around with 3 sessions at the council, don't I?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
I don't mind if you give me some help to give me and I'll do a bit driving, so what?
Yeah.
Great. I've just seen Chicago anyway, so I just thank them again for making the arrangements.
Mm.
See you later about the travel arrangements for tomorrow.
Right.
So it depends whether we, whatever the man does, whether we're around here or, I never know, maybe we could get to Budapest, you know?
Mm. We'll see. Well, it's an exciting 6 hours in the terminal.
Yeah. And there's only so many cups of coffee you can stand. What happened here, David?
I find everybody away.
So, we can do like this one,
Yeah.
okay? And
Oh, that's cool.
what do you think about this?
Let's have a look.
Try it, yeah?
Yeah.
And it won't kill you, yeah?
Yeah, that's good.
Maybe a bit like this one, no?
Yeah.
Oops.
And it doesn't stay very well.
Now?
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
dela man inživno, no jasné, už si mám líbí,
Morning, everybody. It's okay. I'm David Parker. It's great to be here this morning, demonstrating for you. Not usually something I do first thing on Sunday morning, but we'll see how we get on. So what I'm going to do today is just take you through some basic steps on starting to weather a model. The vehicle I've got today is one that has been sitting on my shelf waiting to be painted for quite a long time. But basically what I've done with it is just prepare it. It's got base colours on, it's got the markings on, but no weathering at all. So what I'm going to try and show you today is some steps in how I approach that. Mainly working with acrylics rather than anything else. But what I'm going to start with is an oil wash, just to kind of kick things off and start to define some of the detail. I don't work with a big range of colours. If you get, yeah, it's fine. Whatever you want.
Okay.
Yeah, allegedly. Hello. I haven't seen you for a while. How are you?
How are you?
I saw your models. I knew you were here. I don't want anybody here who knows what they're talking about. Okay, so these are some of the basic colours I work with. Just a couple of colours really, rather than having a huge range. So my plan for this vehicle is to have quite a kind of dusty, dry look with maybe some little bits of wet or mud on the suspension. So my approach for that is going to be, rather than lots of dark washes, I'm going to keep the washes quite light, so that obviously when the mud dries into all the recesses and details on the vehicle, it's going to be a light colour rather than in wet conditions when it would be more of a dark colour. And you can see I've left the shields off the side just for ease of getting into all these areas during the initial stages at least. So quite random with where I'm applying just the thinners at the moment. So I'm not too concerned about the exact shade at the moment. It's just ready to start building things up. Switch to a bigger brush for this. Just one of the things I find about the oil paints more and more is that not giving me the density of coverage that you get with the acrylics. So I don't spend a lot of time with them. It's really just a kind of almost to break up the stark nature of the basically painted kit, so that I can then start working around that. So I probably wouldn't do much more than that, just with the turn it there so you can probably see a bit better than on the camera. And most of that's going to be covered up anyway, so with these it's a little bit more visible. Things to think about on this are the fact that these mud chutes are going to deposit everything down the side of the tank, so I'm really just concentrating on those areas. I meant to say as well, if anybody's got any questions, you just want to fire them out, that's fine, I don't mind. Just
What kind of thinner are you using?
thinner, it's just white spirits,
Yes.
not turpentine, just a regular paint thinner from a DIY store. So.
And you like it better than turpentine?
Yeah, just because it's a little less strong. Sometimes turpentine can start to damage the underlying paint. I haven't used turpentine for a very long time, but that was my experience. When I used to work more with enamels, I found it could be a problem, and if you put too much on, the paint would start to crinkle and lift, and so I stopped using that. I have to find a flat brush like this is quite good for just pulling the colour down across panels and things. So you can see there, as well as the general wash, I've tried to concentrate along these areas here, so that there's more of a build-up of mud coming out of the shoots. And I'll put that aside now, just let that dry. And we'll concentrate on some of the other bits while that's doing that.
Yeah, I know. I think everybody have or something like that.
Yeah. I'm not used to doing this with an audience.
Right. If you need anything, just let me know.
Yeah, okay. Alright, so I'm just going to try and speed through this so that we can get onto the more interesting bits. So I'm just going to really just knock this in quite quickly. There's a big hair in that. Okay, so I'm thinking about here as well as areas where dust will collect, particularly on the horizontal surfaces where the dust is kicked up and then it settles back down on those surfaces. It's not showing up on the camera, is it? So I'm just letting that build up around those flat surfaces. just a bit of thinners there just to blend those bits together so they don't look too different. Just trying to move through this as quick as I can just so we can get on to the next phase. But normally I'd probably be a bit more careful about this and take a bit more care with what I was doing, but sometimes it's quite good just to be a bit more casual with it as well. And the good thing about the oil paints is if anything that looks a bit out of place, you can just get some more thinners and lift it off or correct it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Why are you using only one color for your upper hull and side shields and lower hull?
Because I want a sort of overall dusty look to it. So,
But dust can have many colors.
yeah, but if it's in a particular environment, then it will tend to be a fairly uniform shade at that point. Obviously, if it's moving around, it will pick up different colours at different points. But this is just a first wash.
Okay.
So.
Understand.
So you prefer to use oils rather than animals when weathering the tank?
Yeah, I don't use enamels very much these days. Sorry?
What did you say?
Did you say I prefer oils instead of enamels?
Sorry.
But
I
why?
didn't hear that.
I thought you said to me you prefer to use oils instead of enamels.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm saying I hardly use enamels at all these days. I've switched over to acrylics more as my normal choice. So.
But why? Can you explain it?
Because I find I'm more comfortable with acrylics in that they're giving me the same effects as enamels, but I've without all the. It's as much to do with the packaging. The enamel tins always are a problem to work with. You're trying to get paint out of the bottom of the pot, and Whereas with these, it's ready to go straight away. It handles very much the same as enamels, in my experience. I can get almost the same effects. It's just more convenient. It dries slightly quicker.
But I'm talking about the weathering stage.
Yeah.
So you're using acrylics for weathering?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And what is your opinion about pre-prepared washes and weathering products like Ammo, and AK Interactive stuff?
I'm not a big fan because just because for me I'd rather make my own choices about colours and densities of colour rather than having something that's already pre-mixed or pre-selected.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I understand why I think they're a good solution if you're learning or you want particular effects and you know every time you go to that pot that's the effect you're going to get. But I'd rather kind of have that control myself over what I'm doing and
Why are you using oils right now instead of acrylics?
well, I'm using oils to start with just because it's taken that it's quickly taken that kind of harsh, clean look off the vehicle, which I find a little bit daunting to start with. It's a bit of too much of a blank canvas to start with. So by adding these washes very quickly, I've already defined some detail. I can see where things are settling and collecting. And I can then start to work on that. And I find it also takes a little bit of that satin, because I spray a satin varnish first to work on, and it takes some of that shine away as well. So it's a good starting point.
I see. Thanks.
I'm not, with everything I'm doing, I'm not saying this is the way to do it, and if you don't do it this way, it's
Yes,
this is
everybody-
you will you're going to adapt your own style to products you're comfortable with, and what suits me might not suit everybody, but this is the way I tend to work. I used to just work with oils and enamels. I've switched across to acrylics almost exclusively now, and less with oils even. I tend to use them initially just to get things going, and then maybe to finish little details off. But they have their particular uses, things they're really, really good for, and other things they're not so good for. So it's just developing that sort of style that you're happy with, where things are working. So that's.
You have also the environmental issue. It's not that poisonous.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Every time you
Yeah.
get headaches.
Yeah.
Solvent.
Yeah.
White spirit is dead also, but I think the other is worse.
Yeah. Well, when I used to spray enamels, it's a pretty unpleasant experience, even with a face mask on.
Yes, you got to have good ventilation.
Yeah. Whereas with this stuff, it's not quite so bad. Just going to blend some of these little bits. So as that's drying, there's one or two pieces here where I can see where I'm getting things collecting that I'm not completely happy with, so I'm just going to blend some of those. It's very much about sort of building up layers, and rather than one sort of application that does everything. So. just going to quickly do something with the turret as well, just because there's some nice areas there I want to go back and work on in a moment. So just thinking again about, you know, the big flat areas like the top of this turret is an area which is going to be picking up dust, whereas the sides it's going to kind of settle less on those. Probably no more than that, just to pick up some of those details. So now we go away for 2 hours and wait for that to dry. Not really. Okay, so I'm going to switch across to some acrylics now. Start working with those. So again, I've got like a core palette of colours that I tend to sort of use. I switch between mostly light colour, but a little bit of the Vallejo as well. Find I have to be careful with some of the Vallejo colours because they some of the greens and things have a tendency not to dry very flat. They have a glossy finish to them. So, but this is a great colour. I use this a lot. Stone grey. Use that on all sorts of things. So a little bit of that, a little bit of this.
And it's not a problem that the oil colors haven't dried yet?
Sorry?
It's not a problem that the oil colors haven't dried yet?
What I'm going to do is start doing some work on this, because this looks fairly dry, and hopefully by that time this will have dried. But yeah, normally I would wait until it was dry. I wouldn't leave it a day or anything. I'd leave it, you know, half an hour, 3/4 of an hour or something.
Because I heard that oil colors need like 2 or 3 days to dry completely.
Whoop. That wasn't clever. No, I don't have that problem with it. Always put the lid back on your things. That's the other important lesson.
That's water.
That's water. Yeah, it's water. Yeah, so the difference with working with the acrylics is there's always that initial, when you put some water on, you get this sort of surface tension that can, it doesn't sort of spread quite well. It's behaving itself this morning. It can be a little bit awkward to work with initially, but if you persist with adding water onto it, it will all spread out in the same way that turpentine will.
And you tint the creeks with water even if you already have treated?
Yes, yeah. Sometimes I use one of the thinners, like life colour thinner. It depends what I'm airbrushing, but quite often I just thin it with water. Sorry, I'm not doing that in front of the camera. So the big advantage with this is that you get much more density than you tend to with the oils.
What are you doing now? What are you doing now?
I'm just working around some of these details. Okay. Almost in the same way as you would with oils, you know, treating it like it's an oil paint, but it's not.
What's the drying time of these colours then?
It's quite quick, obviously, and
So you've got to be fast.
you've got to be fast. Yeah, but sometimes when it looks like it's dried, and you think I'm not happy with that bit there, if you're quick, within, you know, as soon as it starts to look like that, and you go back with some more water, you can still work it. You can lift it back off. You can push it around. You can keep working those areas.
Then with the oils, you have
You've got much more working time. Yeah. Is this better for me to hold it up, or do you want it in the? It seems to me that we're not seeing a great deal in the camera. It's a bit sort of bleached out. No, just like this.
I think that is better.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
colour is also much better.
Yeah.
As
Okay.
it's blue.
All right. Excuse me, working upside down. It's not that easy, but.
You have to promote that. Come on. Don't believe all what that guy says. He usually doesn't make tanks. You got your book along, Mitch? Have you got your book? Have you taken your book along?
No.
Okay.
Too heavy.
Alright, it's game time.
So you're doing remarks right now?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the fact that mud and dust are going to come out of those, drop off the tracks and down the sides here. So I want to build that kind of streaking effect down the side, and I'm using this as like a pin wash as well, just to sort of go around any raised details or any kind of access lines, any of the engraved details, and just using these to pick that out. And if you've got a moist brush as well, you can just keep blending back in and lifting bits out, and so you just get quite a clean streak there just by running the brush down. So you can see that's starting to build up just in this area here, as compared to the other bits which have just got the oil on. So just picked out those bolt details. Apply a bit more water up there just to help that blend in. See how that's just starting to bleed into those wet areas. This is a little bit, you can see here I'm not happy with that. There's a slight edge where those colours have dried, so I'm just going to soften that again. Okay, so that's just going along picking those bolt heads out one at a time. Just a bit more water just to blend those. See there, just where it's starting to dry, if you scrub at it a little bit, it will just lift off again. Gives you a much more blended appearance. Okay, so I might just pass that round, some people have a better view. So I'll do a little bit on top of the turret now in a similar way, just to show how that would work. So I'm starting working in around the kind of the recesses where people aren't going to walk, or the dust is really going to kind of sit and collect. And then working away from those to sort of fade back. And you see, just starting to. And it's a good idea just to, not to be afraid to go back with a wet brush and lift off. If it's looking too much or too obvious, you can just lift it off, soften it a bit, and then go back again and add a little bit more. Because this is drying so quickly, whilst you're doing that, the bit you started with is probably dry or drying. Cheers. see there's some... Where are we? No, can't see anything there. So I've just added the first sort of layer of wash detail around those raised elements. So you've got that effect of the dust sitting in the crevices, and just leave that to finish drying. I'll just do a little bit more on this. So with the flat brush, you can just pull these streaks down the sides. Softening it off a little bit. So where you've got little sort of access covers like this, where I guess traditionally you might have gone with a dark colour just to sort of pick that out. I think in reality what you'd find is that the mud and dust and things would collect in there, and it would be more of a pale colour than a dark colour. And that's my kind of main ethos, if you like, when I'm working, is to try and I think there's always that balance between like what makes for an attractive, eye-catching model, but also what's realistic and what actually reflects how things look in reality. And I lean more to sort of what the real thing looks like rather than what makes for an attractive finish. So. just outlined that panel there with a lighter colour. I'll just blend that in a bit. Starting to build those densities of colour on top there too.
So you made another color for that color in the recesses and around the details?
Yeah, a little bit of a lighter shade from that palette of colours I'm mixing, but you often find when you first put it on it looks too light and then it dulls down when it's dry, so sometimes you have to rework it a couple of times to get that right sort of tone and balance. But it's about building up those layers, and you know, it's because in reality this sort of surface is composed of all sorts of wet and dry conditions that have been applied, been rubbed off, been abraded, been splashed. So there's all sorts of things going on there. You know,
And it gives chromatic richness to the photo, right?
yeah. So you're trying to get something that kind of creates the effect that you're looking for, but gives that sort of that colour balance as well. So I'd probably then be working at, you know, similar colours inside the mud shoots here, just to tie that in together.
And you moisten the surface first and then...
Yeah, just, yeah, as you would with an oil wash, just with a bit of, yeah, like a pin wash, so.
Don't you ever have a problem about surface tension?
Little bit,
No.
sometimes, yeah.
What do you do about it?
Just keep working it. The more you scrub it around, it breaks down. You can see it's already there, starting to flow. See, it's blending and shifting. Yes.
And do you use a primer?
No.
No?
No. I very rarely prime things. Unless I'm working towards a particular finish. So, for example, if it was an aeroplane with a bare metal finish, then I would prime that just to then polish that primer to get the best possible smooth finish. But not in terms of, I've never had a problem with paint lifting off a model because it hasn't been primed. And the only good reason I think for using primer is that it will show any defects that you might need to repair and fix, because it gives you that uniform finish. But I don't think it's a necessity for paint adhesion or.
But you wash your model with something before painting, like soapy water? No?
But don't tell anybody. No, I never.
I haven't tried it yet, but I want to try.
Yeah, no, I never wash anything in soapy water, and I break all the rules.
That's usually the thing to do that.
Yeah.
That's when you be creative.
There you can see how that's blending. I'll pass that around. And that's just acrylic, so there's no oils there.
It really looks like a
Yeah.
work with pigments.
Yeah.
By the way, do you use pigments?
A little bit, yeah. Sometimes for little bits of dust, or to mix with
To
maybe
get a little texture.
to get like a mud effect, like maybe with a varnish. But in big things, no. I use tiny amounts of pigments.
And may I ask what kind of airbrush are you using?
Which one of them?
Which one? Yeah. I've got a lot of airbrushes, mainly because I get given quite a few to try. But I have an Iwata with I've got two Iwatas with like a pistol grip. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Instead of the trigger here, it's got the pistol. I use those for putting the base coats on because they've got a big cup, they've got a big nozzle, and
So that's a 0.3 maybe?
bigger than that, I think,
Yeah.
probably 0.5. I can't remember the exact codes for them off the top of my head, but I use those for putting down base colours because you can spray just about anything through them. And I've recently switched to a custom micron for finer detail. Yeah, which is a bit.
That's really good.
Yeah. But before I had one, I had an HPBC Iwata, which is I think about a £250 airbrush, quite high up their range, which was good. But the custom micron's a different level altogether. It's like the Rolls Royce.
Sure,
Yeah.
that's a lot better.
Yeah. But I'm very impressed. It's not one you'd want to use for putting. I wouldn't put varnish through it, for example, because you'll clog it up and ruin it. But for exhaust stains, for delicate camouflage patterns, for writing your name, then that's the one to use.
Yeah, I just picked up hard rusting back. People shall see that was yesterday.
Right. I'm not familiar with that. Is that a delicate one?
What?
Is that a small nozzle?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's split.
Right.
I don't know how to say that. Like the micros.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
It has another like that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to add to the turret before I do, I'll just pass that round as well so you can just see where that is.
It's amazing.
You'd think it was oils, wouldn't you?
What?
You'd think it was an oil wash.
Or an animal or something.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Everybody says that you should use animals or oils, not acrylics. And it's really important that you can get great results with acrylic paints.
Yeah. You have to work quickly with them, and you have to be aware that if you allow them to harden too much, then you can get edges, and a bit like watercolour paints, you can get a hard edge where it dries, which once it's dried completely is very difficult to get rid of. But if you know that and you work with that and keep checking it as it dries, and then lift any bit that's not the way you want it, then it's a good effect.
You're talking about then the color changes when the acrylic dry?
Little bit, but also let me see if there's a bit on here. Thanks, Steve. It's not. This is oil paint. You put that line along there where it hasn't gone into the tool properly, so you've got a line. You can get that sort of effect where
With those?
with the acrylics when it's dry. So sometimes you need to just check if it's doing that. And then you
So if you like it's oil paint, right?
That's oil
And
paint.
if you put acrylics, it will shift underneath the
Yeah. The reason we've got that is because I was working quickly and I haven't taken enough care to. But I can correct that. That's not a problem. But I'm just trying to show you that sort of you get a hard edge like that, which you might not want.
Yeah.
See that sort of.
And how do you correct this?
Well, if you catch it before it's completely hardened, you can scrub with the brush
Or with the blend brush cleaner?
or no, just with water. And then it
Well,
will.
when it's more dry.
Yeah, and we might manage it there. Let's have a look. Yeah, see,
It's good.
it's gone. But if you can leave that for an hour, it won't move. Or half an hour. You have to be, if you see something like that and you're not happy with it, you have to move quickly, otherwise it's fixed.
So we have to keep the working area small.
Yeah, that's why I would deal with the top of the turret as an area. Better to break it down into small areas, or if you're going to do the whole side if you're going to do one of these, you need to keep going backwards and forwards and just checking what you're doing, making sure that you haven't got those sorts of things that you don't want appearing on it.
And you prefer to use light color?
I like life colour. I've got a lot of time for life colour. It always behaves in that it always dries matte, which is what I want. It's very difficult to knock the pots over. The lids come off very easily. It brush paints really well. It airbrushes well.
It's the same colour for brush and airbrush.
Yeah, just
But
Thin
you
it.
have to thin it down, right?
yeah, thin it with a little bit of water or their own
50
thinners.
mix?
Roughly, I'm not somebody who's very precise about how I thin paints, or if it's not coming out of the airbrush, I haven't thinned it enough. That's
Do
you know,
it by feet.
yeah. So I just have a feel for how it looks. Yeah. But the Vallejo, excuse me, Vallejo Air I don't use a great deal. This is the only Vallejo Air colour that I really use, which is their black, which is fantastic
It
colour.
has Vallejo air colors have a really big pigmentation, right?
Yeah, and they bead on plastic, bare plastic. You have to prime it, otherwise
Yes.
it won't take to it at all. And I can't be bothered. I just want to paint, so.
And you have some ammo or AK paints there?
A little bit, yeah. This is MIG ammo stuff. In fact, I haven't used it a lot. This is the green I used on here, but I already had a green. I had a Vallejo Air green to start with, and I put this over the top because I thought it looked a better green for what I wanted, and it was fine. Yeah, it worked fine. Having said that, I used one of these other colours recently, like a NATO green. It was the wrong colour. It was the same colour as the green plastic in the kit. It was drying all different finishes. It was satin here, it was gloss here, it was matte underneath. You know.
And have you tried the new AK formula?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Probably.
Well, I haven't tried it yet, but
No,
it looks so good on the videos.
Yeah.
Of course, on the AK Interactive YouTube channel, but
Yeah, but this I would recommend everybody to get a bottle of this. It's
matte.
it's just black, but it's not matte. It's got a very subtle shine to it. Not a satin, just off, just between the two, and you can brush paint it, and it looks like you've airbrushed it. Things like propellers for nose cones, electrical boxes. You know, there's things that have got a little bit of, like the clips on your camera bag there, the plastic clips. It would do those perfectly, and you can from it brush paints perfectly. It's superb. It's really worth getting. But I mean, I tend to think a lot of these are all the same. They're pretty much made. They're all made to the same sort of formula. They're all, a lot of it is just marketing. It's just, here's the colours you need for this vehicle, or and when you open the box, they've got some other name written on them. They've just picked those out of the range and put them in a box for you.
This kind of products that exploded on the market.
Yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah. It's a little. It's never about these. It doesn't matter whether it's this or that. It's about this and the hand holding it.
And the eye.
Yeah, because you can have the best state-of-the-art paint in the world, but if you've got a 6-inch household paintbrush, you're not going to get a very fine result.
It's like with the kitchen knife, it doesn't make a jiff.
Exactly. So I think it's a bit like some of this is a bit like the Emperor's New Clothes,
Did you hand paint these numbers, maybe?
On the turret, yes. Yeah.
Good, you don't do figures too much.
But it's just practice. It's just practice.
Like everything else.
Yeah.
So you're doing figures too?
A little bit, yeah. I've got a bust downstairs in the competition, but it's the first time I've done a bust, and I quite enjoy myself. So I'm going to.
What kind of bust? What kind of bust?
Yeah, it's an SS machine gun guy he's got this Life Miniatures. He's got the tripod on his back, big Parker.
I will check it out.
Yeah. Don't look too closely.
Oh my god, now he's doing figures.
And do you have any tips on painting figures? Do you know any publications about
Painting figures? Not really. I was going to try and do a series for the magazine, a bit of a sort of step-by-step, something for 35th scale, because it's a different technique to painting a 10 scale bust. I would say Life Colour they do a set of flesh paints, which I use, and I think they're a really good starting point because they give you some base colours and then some shadows, some lighter shadows, not lighter shadows, lighter highlights and darker shadows. And if you mix those sort of, and get tones in between, you've got a great sort of range of colours there to sort of.
Because I saw that Andrea Mieszers have some publications about figure painting.
Yeah. It's a bit like any of these things. It's quite difficult to kind of describe in pictures and words what you're doing. Whereas if someone's actually doing it in front of you, it becomes a lot more straightforward to see what's happening. Especially on 35th scale heads, you know, it's everything's so small. It's quite difficult to sort of to clearly demonstrate what you're doing. But I started out painting figures and war game figures and Hysterex figures and that sort of thing. So I spent a lot of when I was a boy, I spent a lot of hours trying to improve my painting techniques for figures, which has been a good basis for what I've done since. So I've always had a kind of a technique that I know works reasonably well. But what I would say is, and the same with painting uniforms and things, I would say put a base colour down. So if you're painting this T-shirt, you mix an orange, put that down. Then I would go maybe 2 tones darker. So then you put a slightly darker shade for sort of the intermediate shadows, and then more selectively, the sort of real creases, the dark shadows, 2 tones, and then I'd maybe come 1 tone lighter, so mix a little bit of yellow or white.
And you can do it in the way how you did the weathering. So you use acrylics like oil, so you put a little dot of acrylic and you blend it. You
can do that. What I tend to do if I'm doing a figure is I'll mix a base colour, and then I'll add either blacks or darker colours into that to do my shadows. Rather than using washes, I'm actually painting them in a fully sort of opaque.
Or working glazes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
If you go 2 shades darker, 1 shade lighter, and then possibly another shade lighter again. But you need to be. If you go too light with your highlights, it starts to make things look a bit artificial. I think you get those. You don't want a big contrast between your darkest colours and your lightest colours. It becomes it's like one of those photographs where you've turned all the contrasts up. You know.
Yeah, so a lot of figures are painted like that in the competition.
Yeah. It's fashionable. It makes attractive figures.
It's really attractive.
But I don't. For me, it's not what I want to do.
It's really artistic.
Yeah. But you look at people around the room, and people don't have bright red faces and big brown shadows, and you know everybody here's got very pale skin, and the shadows are quite minimal actually, you know, but that's not fashionable in figure painting. But
I thought about that as well. It's funny.
Yeah.
All the big masters, they overextend this, I think. Just like you said.
Oh yeah, there's these huge angular shadows and I was at a show last weekend, and somebody had done a U-boat captain, and from a distance, from here to there, I thought he was a Negro because the skin tones were so dark. You know, it was.
Maybe they had some Negroes in there.
Yeah. Well. I think, you know, that's me though. I do my own thing. I don't follow I don't try and copy the sort of trendy techniques and things. I just I'm more looking at the real world and what things look like there. So what I'm doing here is just building up these sort of dusty areas in around the raised detail. And the good thing about this, working with the acrylics, is although they're drying quickly, they've got a nice density to them as well, and you can very quickly establish these kind of looks, and then keep adding to them. And again, just keeping a moist brush on hand, you can pull bits out. You can. That's one thing I do use enamels for, which is quite a nice technique. Is say you've got a vehicle that's really, that effect where say it's gone through quite a dirty environment, and if it's got a big flat rear, all the mud gets thrown up, and the whole thing is just brown. Yeah, but then if somebody comes along and opens the door or puts a hand on it, or it wipes all the paint, all the mud away and exposes the paint, so you've got this contrast between brown mud and the original colours. So what I do for that is, if you spray an enamel mud colour of your choice across the model to give that kind of opaque effect, and then again working reasonably quickly, sort of within the hour of having sprayed it, if you take some white spirits and use a flat brush, you can then just wipe the enamel off, and it gives you it'll expose that underlying paint, and it gives you that effect. And it's great for things like where the crew have grabbed, if a handle swings down and it kind of cleans a section of paint, you can just do that with the brush. You can also do for handprints as well, just with a smaller brush. You can just define the fingertips and things, and you get these kind of handprints in the mud. And it's a nice little technique. And then once it's hardened, it's there for good. It doesn't move at all. Details. Trying to see if I had a picture of the bust, but it's somewhere in there I can't find it. Okay, one other little thing I thought I'd show you is is my technique for exhaust mufflers, which is again done with acrylics and quite simple. But I think it's one of those bits where you see it on a lot of models where the exhausts are a bright orange, rusty colour, and in reality they don't look like that. They're more grey, they're more brown, they're more purpley almost. They're much more sort of subtle, and as soon as you put bright rust colours on, it starts to look artificial. And the best thing to do is to go and study like industrial earth movers and that sort of thing, where you can see these, or tractors are great as well because they have those sorts of things quite visible. Or even the exhaust manifold on your car, if you can see that, where you can see the colour that goes, and it's not bright orange. So what I've done here is just loosely put a base colour on, which you can see is quite a kind of mid-brown, I suppose. And then I'm working with, I use this colour quite a lot, which is called light brown, but it's almost a kind of flesh colour.
Yes.
And I think if you keep that in mind when you're working on exhausts, it gives a much more sort of scale appearance rather than sort of looking at orange colours. So that's my starting point, is that colour. These sorts of brown shades, yeah, that's quite a good colour as well. So again, I think about using it treating it as a wash. So I'd moisten that. And again, you could. Something you could think about applying with maybe bits of sponge as well, just to give you the sort of texture.
Like little chips, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's
micro chip.
initially what I'm doing is just putting it on quite loosely, blending it, smudging it, so that you've got a little bit of variation in the tones there, so it's not one flat colour. There's differences in there. it's pretty well dry already there. So I'm going to repeat that now. And I'm going to add a little bit more orangey colours into that, and a bit more of the actual pink.
So you're using that kind of flash tone right now?
Yeah. What I might do is just do the bottom one so you can just see it progress. This is where you can get that, those little puddles that can form, that can be a problem in other areas, they're almost like an advantage here, because you get that kind of flaky looking finish to the exhaust. So the bottom one has a bit more.
That's your thing? Yeah. Let's look at this. By the way, you don't mind if I take a few pictures
No,
of your
no,
work then,
no,
and
it's
then
all-
of the version?
That's all.
Nice, amazing.
That's all correct. All correct. So a little bit of oil is, but mostly. You see it? He's everywhere.
And you're writing articles in magazines?
Yes, AFE model.
What kind of magazines?
AFE and air model.
He's the editor. Sorry, I don't know.
That's all right.
I should go out.
Get out.
Thank you, Dave. That's definitely more informed again.
Good, good. I'll be testing you later. Now the other thing that I've noticed about exhausts is that you can get these little spots of like quite a dark rusty sort of, well, not, it's not red, it's like a really kind of really dark brown almost. What was I doing? It's all out of no. You're still barred. So this is almost a bit like paint chipping, you know, where you're just doing little sort of tiny random dots of colour. And it's not something that covers the whole muffler or anything, it's just in sort of selected areas. And you could probably get a similar effect with a sponge as well, just little. This is much more controllable if you just do it with a fine brush. So that's an initial. So now I'm going to just add a few more darker tones on top of those ones.
It's a nice thing. It is just as if you have used some pigment. Looks a little like it.
Yeah, yeah. It's the thing with the pigment is it's great for certain things. I think it's great for like a. You know, if you're doing a desert vehicle, for example, I think there's nothing better because it's giving that real dusty look. But I don't always think that's appropriate for, you know, every subject. And I think sometimes it can kind of kill any detail because it is just too dead. should have is a bit of rust coloured oil paint, but I haven't, so I'm going to improvise with a bit of acrylics. So once I've added some slightly darker dots, then you can just go over it with a little bit of oil colours, which is where they work really well because they're just going to just blend so beautifully. But this is as much as I would do in terms of rustiness. It's just to kind of acrylics are maybe a bit much. Just on some of the bigger of these little spots, is just to kind of put a little kind of wash around them. It's not the best ever because I've been rushing it a little bit, but you can see if you spend a bit more time with it, just build it up, you start to get that.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Yeah, there's no bright orange colours going on, so just subtle little dots.
Any other?
And you can't really get that effect with the sponge, right? Because
Yeah, the thing with the sponge though is you
Yeah, it's
haven't got
really
much
good.
control, so you can get to quite heavy applications of paint where you might not want it. But for something like that, with that degree of delicacy, I would always prefer to go with the brush and just, do some random dots and just build it up. Again, it's worth just looking at the real thing. But what colour is the real muffler? It's not bright orange. In fact, rusty things, there's actually very little bright orange. When I was doing that, I got my tortoise in the competition, which is that range target vehicle, and that's all rusty, but the only bits that are really bright orange are the real thin